We've got a lot of slides up here that we can go through at our discretion. But one of the things that I thought maybe would be great for us to talk about first is the exhibition itself. I talked you into this crazy idea of trying to focus on the development of your painting over the years, and in particular, I convinced you to start with some of your very earliest pieces, which are in the show. Would you mind talking a little bit about your early training and how, even maybe how relevant it is to the work you're making today?
Thank you so much for coming. So, I want to explain, Japanese is much better to, very precisely thing, Part of thing is, speaking Japanese, and part of thing is English. So, but I want to explain about my background, like kind of when I was college student. So that thing is, I want to explain in Japanese. 僕アニメーションを見てアニメーターになりたくて、絵の勉強を始めたんですけど、本当に未だにそうですけど、アニメーションの才能がなくて、絵のその大学に行くことによって、将来アニメの仕事に就きたいと思い、大学で一番簡単に合格するであろう日本画というところを選んで、しかし2年間浪人して、合格して、でその後にですね、漫画のトレーニングも自分なりにしたんですけどうまくいかず、こんな中途半端な絵を描いたんで、非常にこれ亀の絵なんですけどね、アマゾンにいるまたまたっていう亀の絵なんですけども、すごく恥ずかしくて、マイケルがこれどうしても出したいって言っても結構最後まで抵抗したんですけど、なかなかマイケルに負けまして持ってきましたけど、とにかく展示してるのを見てとにかく恥ずかしくて嫌な思い出しか思い出さない作品なんですよね。
So first, I really wanted to become an animator, and that's what I wanted to study. But unfortunately, still to this day, I have no talent. I wanted to find a work in animation, so that's why I choose to study study drawing and painting in university. And I chose Japanese painting, Nihonga department, because I thought it would be easiest to get in. But however, it took me I spent 2 years not being able to get in, trying the entrance examination again. And then after university, I also trained to draw manga. But when I painted this painting, it's just really half-baked, and it's a painting of a turtle called Mata Mata in Amazon area. And I'm really embarrassed by this painting. So Michael really wanted to include this in the show, and I resisted. I really resisted till the end, but he pushed it into the show. So I'm very embarrassed, and I only have bad memories about it.
Thank you for indulging me in that, Takashi. I mean, as the curator guy up here, see things in this early work that I think keep being continued later. There are these really craggy characters in the most recent paintings. There's a absolute precision in the recent paintings that I think is echoed in the early stuff. But let's embarrass you a little bit more with one more early piece. One of the things that when I first saw these in the studio, I was blown away. I'd never seen them before. He really hasn't shown them outside of Japan. But I think they really lay the groundwork for both his grounding in Eastern Asian traditions, but then also where he goes with that, how he starts to embrace Western approaches to contemporary art. And maybe this picture, Takashi, from 1988 is a good example of where you start to blend your Nihonga influences with some Western influences.
この絵はですね、大まかに言って3つ恥ずかしいポイントがあるんですよね。So
for this painting, there are roughly 3 points that I'm very embarrassed about.
1番目はこれキーファーの真似なんですよね。
So the first point is that this is I'm imitating Anselm Kiefer.
で2番目はなんか何ですかね、当時この作品と同時に ビデオ作品作っておりまして、で後になんていうんですか、原子爆弾の煙の作品とか出てきたりしますけど、自分の結構メインテーマっていうのはやっぱりこう、戦争に負けてその後の日本の情景っていうことだったんですけど、この情景は日本のドキュメンタリー番組でスリーマイル島の、原発が爆発した後に封鎖されてるっていうドキュメンタリーがあって、それを当時はですねキャプチャーとかできなかったんでテレビ画面を写真で撮って、でそれを見ながら描いた絵なんですよね。つまり何ですかね、結構こうちょっとこっぱずかしい政治的な初めて描いた政治的な作品なんですよね。
So at the same time I made this painting, I was also making a video work. And later on, I will go on to make smoke from or clouds from atomic bomb and things like that. But my main theme since then, I have explored the scenery of Japan after defeat in the war. But this painting, the motif is the 3 Miles Island, the nuclear power plant. When it blew up, I was watching how on TV how it was shut down. And at the time, of course, you didn't have computer and screen to capture those images. So I took a photograph of a TV news, and that's how this painting came about. So it's my sort of first foray into politically themed painting. So that's a little embarrassing as well.
あと3番目の恥ずかしいっていうのは何ですかね、もう本当にさっきキーファーって言いましたけど、キーファーの前にキーファーそっくりな大竹伸郎さんという作家がいて、それ真似してて、これ書いてる途中で気がついて、いろんなこう何ていうんですか、作品の隅々にテクニカルなところでめちゃくちゃ迷ってるんですよね。だからそのなんかこう何ていうんですか、自分はこの作品を書いてきたので、テクニックそのものがもうめちゃくちゃで、そこがもう最後に恥ずかしいところなんですよね。
So the third point that I'm embarrassed about, I mentioned Kiefer as the first one, but before Kiefer, I was imitating Japanese painter Shindo Otake, whose work is very, very similar to Kiefer. And I was imitating his painting, and I was making this painting, and then in the midst of, in the process, I realized that the similarity. And so throughout the painting process, there's been a lot of a troubling feeling about on the technical level. And so the entire time I was really troubled about, I couldn't find the right way, right technique, and that shows, so that's the embarrassing point.
Okay. Well, I think it's going to be really great for people to see these, and they're also joined by this other huge painting, which is still, I think, where you're both under the influence of Nihonga, working through Nihonga principles, but also again blowing this. This is about 23 feet wide and 12 plus feet tall. Also, the scale for this seems to me where again you're finding that way towards a more spectacular type of expression, but still grounded in Nihonga. Was that a fair way to characterize this?
そうですね。これもちょっとちゃんと日本語で説明した方がいいと思うんですけど、これもいくつもストーリーがあってですね、僕日本画っていうのはやっぱりその当時バブル経済の頂点で日本のアートシーンでものすごく稼いでたんですよね。でそれに対してめちゃくちゃなんかムカついてて、多分学生時代の僕が今の僕を見たら僕に対してめちゃくちゃムカついてるとムカつくと思うんですけど、とにかく日本画の連中は稼ぎまくっててムカついてたんですよ。だけどその学科に入っちゃってなんとかドクターを取りたくて卒業しなきゃいけなかったんで、しょうがなく現代美術の作品の練習をしながら日本画のそういう画材を使って作品作んなきゃいけないっていうのがこの作品の実態なんですよね。
So So I think it's best to explain this background in Japanese as well, so excuse me. But it has many stories behind this painting, but one of them is that around the time I was painting this, back then, Nihonga, the Japanese painting industry, was in the midst of the bubble economy, and the Nihonga painters were really making a lot of profit. So watching it, I was just really angered and really annoyed by them. And perhaps my student ear self, if my student ear self looked at me now, I'll be very annoyed as well. So they were successful making profit, but then I kind of accidentally made it into the department of that genre. So and then I wanted to earn a PhD in that genre. So in that Nihonga style. So I had to use the materials related to this traditional painting style and practice creating some work. That's why that's the story behind how this painting came about.
And also that this painting that I was trying to, what is the challenge this painting was first time to the making abstraction paintings, just color field. So and then how can I build to the painting stuff? The painting is completely same way to the architecture. Like, for example, architecture is necessary to how building for the mathematics or like a technical thing. So something like that. Painting looks like easy, but the professional painting understanding is in architect in a painting. So that is first time I was succeed. Not complete, but not 100%. But this is first time to succeed about abstraction painting. Nothing to the motif, but can say this is a painting. Minimal architect inside. So that is this painting background also, I believe.
Great. Well, one thing that we see throughout the first half of your career too is a lot of quite monochromatic painting backgrounds, and that you would add figures onto them. And so we've got some great examples in the show. But one of the things that we also try to trace in the exhibition is the evolution of your character, Mr. Dobe. We've got some fantastic examples of all different scales and types. But maybe would you mind talking a little bit about Mr. Dobe, how he came about, and what he really even means to you today?
よくね僕この話をすると何ですかね語訳とかでいろいろ誤解されちゃうんですけど、この頃ね日本ではですアメリカの大体2年遅れぐらいで日本ってアメリカの現代美術が入ってくるんで、バーバー・グルーガーとかジェニー・ホルザーとかの作家の作品がすごい一生懸命紹介されてて、それをみんな日本の現代美術作家パクってたんですよね。でそれが僕すごい嫌で、なんでかっていうと現代美術っていうのはパクリじゃなくて、やはりオリジナルな自分の生きてる背景みたいなものを反映しなきゃいけないんじゃないかっていうことだと思ってたので、実際そうなんですけど、そんなに安易にアメリカのアーティストの衣装、デザインっていうかね、見た目を借りてパクって芸術作品ですっていうのはおかしいんじゃないかと思い、でじゃあでも日本でそんなにランゲージアートが流行ってんだったら僕なりのランゲージアートを作ってやるよと思い、で何ていうんですか、やっぱりジェニー・ホルザーとかバーバラ・クラウガーとか結構ポリティカルだったりとかメッセージが強いもんだったんですけど、僕はすごいバカバカしく、しかも意味のないフレーズをランゲージアートにしようと思ったんですよね。で思って作ってみたらなんかキャラクターになっちゃったんですよ。でそこからなんとなくもちろんキャラクターになっちゃったって言いますけど、キャラクターにもしたかったんでランゲージアートの方がちょっとステップバックしてキャラクターのが前に出てきてしまったんですけど、これ顔が O で DOB で DOB の意味は、ここで言うのもあれなんですけど、どぼしてどもしておしゃまんべってくだらない日本のフレーズがあってですね、それをランゲージアート風にやったという、ほとんど皆さんには分からないであろう、そういった背景があります。これ
So when I talk about the background about this story, it's often misinterpreted and misunderstood. But around this time, when I first created this character, so in Japan, Japanese contemporary art scene, American trends would come maybe 2 years with 2 years delay. So around this time, the language art from America, artists like Barbara Kruger and Jenny Holzer, their works were very popular in Japan, and Japanese contemporary artists were basically imitating them and copying them. And I really didn't like it because I believe that contemporary art was not about.
I didn't like that. I love Jenny Holtz and I love Barbara Kruger. I don't like to imitate it by these artists in Japanese artists piece. Sorry. So this is many times to misunderstanding and writing in article. I hate Takashi Murakami. Hate Barbara Kruger and Jenny Holzer. This is I love these artists. Sorry.
Excuse me if it was confusing, but yes, so he hated the fact that the Japanese artists were imitating because he believed that contemporary, I believe that contemporary art is not about imitating, but about expressing and reflecting the original something that the life you are actually living. That's what I thought, and I do think that's what it is. So I thought it was just an easy way out to copy American art concept, but at the same time, it was true that the language art was very popular in Japan at the time, so I decided to make my own language art of a sort. And of course, Barbara Kruger and Jenny Holzer, their language art had very strong messages, so I decided to use completely meaningless phrases and phrase. And when I tried making this language art, it became a character. So I ended up with a character, although I also wanted to make a character to begin with. So once I created the character, the language art part of it kind of stepped back into the background, and then the character kind of took on its own life. So Mr. Dobe, what Mr. Dobe is that the 2 ears has D and B, and the face is O. And what it came from as language art is, it's not going to make any sense to you because it's a nonsensical phrase in Japanese, but it's dobojite oshamambe. It's really nonsensical phrase, so it probably won't make any sense to you.
Takashi, this show looks at over 30 years of your work, especially through the lens of painting. But seeing this arc, are there certain moments that maybe the show reminds you of where that you could identify as real turning points, either turning points or high points that you were really proud of, or that pushed your work forward to the next chapter?
Yes, Michael, so you choose each piece is at my turning point, kind of. Yes, it's truly. So this piece is a big turning point, because I was that moment was 36 years old. I got the gout because I ate the noodle every day, and smoking and no sleeping. It looks like very bad condition for the lifestyle, and then my leg is double scale. I was shocking. Oh my God, this is a virus. But go to the hospital. Oh, so you have a gout, and then oh my goodness, I got old, and that moment was I was mentioned for the oh my God, I will die soon. So that's why my one of the my character, the dog, will dying, puking and shitting, and looks like many antenna thing, still want to grow, or still want to understanding for the all over the world, but this is on the process in the dying. So that is a very honest not message, looks like very honest feeling painted by the the design thing.
Yeah, that painting is really a spectacular one. You also in our conversations identified this point around the time that you worked with Kanye, And these are two paintings that are in the exhibition. The one on your left is a brand new painting that he made just for the exhibition, which is spectacular. But you identified this period as a real turning point, I think, to me, and you wanted to especially include some of your collaborative works in the exhibition like this. And then soon thereafter, you really started to make a turn towards more historical material, like these Daruma paintings. Is there anything about that period, 2007, 2008, that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, but I have a big question, Michael. Why you are not choosing for the Louis Vuitton painting?
It's coming later.
Okay. So because but in the exhibition is nothing, because that was my big turning point, because the Kanye West job. So why? So I can do that because after the Louis Vuitton stuff, because Louis Vuitton project was biggest impact. So about because I was enjoying with this collaboration with Marc Jacobs, but in the reality in art world, the auction house decided that Takashi Murakami is dead. So that means the secondary market prices like over 30% is down. So kind of I was freezing, like what is that, the effect, because in fashion world is big success, but in art world, in the market is art people is kind of how can I say, refuse this choice. So, but after that, okay, so never mind, because I'm not the U.S. artist, I'm not European artist, I'm Japanese Asian, so I cannot join with the Western art art scene. Okay, so can do that anything, like the record jacket, and yes, and kind of making some accessory, yes, the toy stuff, yes, everything can do that. So that is, I decided after the, before I did the many T-shirts or the toy stuff, but after the Louis Vuitton shock myself, so I decided I can do that anything. So because I'm not in a serious art world, I still believe myself. I am outsider in the art world. So that's why, the Kanye West thing is, please watching to the blue background, the painting. This is exactly the same thing in a record jacket. Like, how can I say? Yeah. Can I? Yeah, like this is, having a copyright. Who is a copywriter? Include in a painting, but this is non-architect, the painting non-architect painting. So that is this painting is very unique, I believe.
Yeah, it provides a great inflection point in the exhibition to when we start to turn to look at this work, such as the Daruma paintings, these Korean paintings, where really you're making what seems to me a very obvious turn back towards Asian art history. And then, of course, another turning point that you've identified, and I think it shows in the exhibition, is the 2011 tsunami and earthquake in Japan, which led to, among other things, the Fukushima nuclear reactor disaster, which and one of your responses was to start making paintings of these Buddhist monk figures that are called arhats. Could you talk a little bit about that period?
Okay. 何度もいろんなインタビューとかで答えてるんですけど、やっぱり津波で特にやっぱり自分の国で、しかも近所で、人がいっぱい何万人も一気に死んだっていうことが1個目で、2個目はさっきのすごく最初の頃のペインティングでもその放射能の ニュークリアパワープラントとかそういうものに対する拒否反応っていうのがひどかったのに、僕のスタジオからやっぱ車で1時間半ぐらいのところの福島の原発が爆発したんですよ、2回。で爆発してですねうちの母親は実は長崎の原爆とか体験していて、長崎の原爆が落ちた時よく子供の頃聞かされてたんですけど、空が虹色になったって言うんですよ。でそれと同じようにやっぱり福島の原発が爆発した次の日ぐらいの空を僕見上げたら、やっぱりすごく風がものすごく強くて、でも空がやっぱりなんかパープル色だったんですよね。でそういう状況の中で、なんかやっぱりその西洋スタイルの現代美術とかやってる場合じゃないなとか思い、でやっぱ500羅漢の図を描いた人とか、あと宗教とは何だったのかっていうことを非常に深く考えるようになってしまって、それでその日本の宗教画にかなり興味を持ち始めて、それを自分なりに解釈して描くようになりました。
So I feel like I've answered this similar question many times in different interviews, but after the tsunami, the great earthquake and tsunami in 2011, the fact that tens of thousands people died in my own country and also very close by to where I was a really big reason that I turned to this theme, and also. I had a huge resistance to radiation and nuclear power plant, as we've talked about since when I was young, but just an hour and a half away by car from my own studio in Fukushima, the nuclear power plant exploded twice. And my mother has actually experienced the Nagasaki atomic bomb, and she has told me ever since I was young that after the bombing, the sky turned in rainbow color. And around my studio, a day or two after when the nuclear power plant exploded, it was very strong. The wind was really strong, and I looked up the sky, and the sky looked purple. So in that kind of situation, I started to think maybe it's not really the time for me to be pursuing this Western-styled themed contemporary art. And then I started taking interest in what these art hats, the paintings, the themes of art hats might be in these religious paintings, Japanese paintings in the past, and who were the people who painted this type of religious paintings. And that's how I started thinking about Japanese religious painting, studying it, and reinterpreted them in my own way.
That's great. Yeah, I think one of the real joys of the exhibition for me is seeing all of this work that's come after that period, and this is just one of many paintings that are in this style that are incredibly dense and incredibly rich and amazing details, but then also have this weighty subject matter at the heart of them as well. We titled the exhibition "The Octopus Eats Its Own Leg," and it's been exciting to see how you've embraced that theme. This octopus character has emerged that we've used in graphics, obviously in the costume tonight. There's
brand new for you.
Yeah.
Blue version.
So you've probably seen the octopus mascot outside in the lobby, hopefully on your way in. And then one of the things that's also incredibly exciting is Takashi has made a 114-foot-long brand new painting for the exhibition that wraps around an entire room called "The Octopus Eats Its Own Leg." And one of the central images is this image of this skull-like octopus character. But would you like to say anything about how you arrived at this title, Takashi? I mean, it was really you, and I embraced it as soon as you suggested it. But
okay. そうね、このタイトルつけるときは気がつかなかったんですけど、ファインディングにもパート2にも出てくるんですよね、7本足のタコが。だからなんかそういうちょっとした小話的な なんか一本何かが欠けてるっていうのが7本足のタコなのかなと。この前やってたアライバルっていう映画でもヘクタポットっていう7本足のタコみたいなのが出てきますけど、イカみたいかあれは。なんか僕はやっぱりその自分のキャラクタードブ君とか日本のそういうレファレンスをいろいろこうなんていうんですか食い散らかして自分のキャリアを続けてこれたので、かなり自虐的に自分の自画像を考えると、タコが自分の足食ってだんだん縮んでいくようなそういうムードだったのでそういうタイトルをつけたんですが、でも結果的になんか特に「アライバル」っていう映画見た時になんかヘクタポット7本足やんと思ってすごいなんか、だからなんだってわけじゃないんですけどなんかそういうムードです。
So when I actually came up with this title, I didn't really realize, but I realize it now that in the movie Finding Dory, the Finding Nemo 2, there's actually an octopus with only 7 legs. So it's like something that is lacking an element seems like an octopus here. And also in the movie Arrival, the alien hectopods, they seem to have 7 legs. Maybe they're octopus, they're squid, I don't know. But when I came up with the title, I was thinking about myself using, my own character, Mr. Dobb, repeatedly in my paintings. I keep having using the reference. It's as if I've been eating my own references and artwork in order to continue surviving in my career. So in a sense, it was a self-deprecating self-portrait, and that's how I came up with the octopus eating its own leg to survive, but sort of slowly shrinking. But then I thought about the movie Arrival. Hey, there's alien with 7 legs, so not that it really has any point. That's the mood.
Well, I think we have some octopus temporary tattoos that we'll be passing out and things like that over the course of the show. So keep your eyes open for more octopus imagery. The exhibition does have a few sculptures here and there that we've included, including this great piece, Kanye Bear, which is really fun. There are these enormous demon sculptures that you'll see when you get into the exhibition. And also a brand new sculpture. This is just taken from Instagram, and I kind of wanted to get to that in a second here, skipping past a few of my other slides where I wanted to ask you about other media. That you had debuted this Jellyfish Eyes movie here in the MCA Theater a couple years ago. Here's some of the material that we talked about related to Art Forum. And of course, we also briefly touched on your collaborations with Kanye West, but you also have done some things with Pharrell Williams, like this great animated music video that you made with your character there and Pharrell's character, and and I also included just some things like even your Vans collaboration too. But one of the things that's been a really interesting and I think super innovative, and I've gotten lots of comments from people, is how you have really made the creation of the new works for this exhibition incredibly transparent. You've been posting pictures on Instagram constantly as this new painting is being developed. I have some other slides of the sculpture. And to me, again, as I said, I've got all these great comments where people feel like you're really opening up your studio. They feel it's incredibly generous. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what motivated you to do this, and also if you've found it to be a positive experience.
いや正直に言うとやっぱこう大きいプロジェクトには投資してくれる人もいて、僕はすごく他のコミッションワークとか遅れてるんで、いやどうもすいません、これちょっとこっち忙しいんでちょっともうちょっと待ってくださいっていうような意味を持ってインスタグラムに今ちょっとこっち忙しいんでごめんなさいっていう意味のメッセージなんですよね、正直に言うと。
Honestly speaking, this is a huge project, and then there are people who are, would commission my works, other works, and invest in my activities. And so there are a lot of people waiting for the commissioned work to be completed, but I haven't been able to work on them. So I was really trying to show that this is a huge project, and I'm really, really busy right now, and this is what I'm working on. So just a second, this is what I'm working on. So that was the purpose for this.
Like, you know, like some guy is waiting for over 2 years. So that's why I'm sorry. Like, this is my message. And ta-da!
But I mean, most artists, you know, don't like to show all of these stages of progress. They might think that it's revealing secrets. They might not think that these are ready for consumption by the audience. But was that a problem for you to share all of the early versions and even when they're not finished?
Yeah, because, you know, I was big shock when I was 22 years old, 20 years old. Looks like I saw the making a movie, like Empire Strikes Back about Star Wars. The making movie was, you know, shocking because, you know, this is the same, you know, feeling. Why? So you open the box. This is a magic, but you know, you open the box and, you know, this is a trick. Right? I want to believe Star Wars world, but you know, what is that? But same time, wow, this is great, you know, technique and a great process, and I want to go into this industry. And then right now is, you know, every year can see the Marvel movie like, you know, 4 times, 5th time, right? So kind of computer graphics, you know, generation is how grow came from the, you know, Star Wars making movie. So I think, you know, that process to open the box to the public, maybe, you know, some young kids, oh my God, can do that. I can do that, you know, something like that. You know, this is easy. This is bad quality, you know, much better, you know. So my technique is good. So looks like I want to invitation to the young kids or like, you know, open the, you know, everything is a great experience because I have a great experience. And then, you know, now is a movie industry, you know, to release the making movie is separately, and this is a variable. So when I buying for the Lord of the Ring special edition complete box is looks like $600 or something like that. So this is maybe in the future so much variable. So that's why I don't know. But you know, very honest thing is she translated about sorry for my investment people.
Well, so what you're seeing here are some progress images of this brand new sculpture that's debuting upstairs also in the exhibition, which was really exciting. When Takashi came to visit in April, this existed only as an idea in his head, and since then he just set forth to make this with his team, ship it to the US, display it here at the MCA. So we were really thrilled by the energy that you brought to that project. But maybe just one concluding question before we open it up to questions from the audience. But now that you've made this big push to do this show here in Chicago, and you've overcome these huge challenges like making this huge sculpture in record time and this huge painting, what is your next big challenge? What is the next project that you're really excited about?
Not talking about this thing was the next thing. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I want to talking about why. So
Okay.
okay. So because, that this show is very nice curating show. First room is super embarrassing room, like kind of my college, stupid painting and the sculptures. And second room is good, like kind of the start to the contemporary artist looks like. And third room it's okay, right? Like mushroom, big painting, and step by step is Michael Darling was good job. But this is your show. This is not my show still. So that is my frustration. How can I do? So that is over your head. I have to making. So and then I never asking you, and then, I created this thing, and then I have no question for you, and you agree. Setting for this piece is great, but I want kind of the pick it up, my side. like a, how can I say, I don't know.
Make
like,
it your own.
Yeah, so that's why I'm making for the, this is painting show, I understand. But painting and sculpture is a final room, is kind of my attitude.
Thank you. Well, we're thrilled that you've come to work with us here. So thank you, Takashi.
Thank you.
So we definitely have time for questions. We have some microphone runners that will be kind of going up and down either side. So if you have a question, please wait for the microphone to be passed to you, and we'd be glad to call on you. Do we have a first one here? Okay, thank you.
Hi. I actually don't have a question, but after what you just said, I just wanted to thank you because you're so humble and you're so incredible, and we love your art. Like, you're huge here. So we're really grateful that you came, and thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. Everything is amazing, and this is truly an incredible experience, so thank you very much. In a lot of your art, you have the skulls, and then you have the flowers. Can you talk about how you came up with the two of them and what they mean as they continue to reoccur throughout your art?
お花となんですか？そうですね。僕自身の経験でやっぱり現代美術っていうか、芸術の経験って2つあって、一つは美術大学に行って自分の絵を描き始めて、例えばリンゴがそこにあったらリンゴを上手に描けるようになるまでが一つのプロセスで、その次に、自分のスタイルとか自分自身を発見しなきゃいけないんですけど、その時に出会う美術が一つ。でもその前に幼少時に見た、体験というのがすごく強くて、僕にとってはゴヤの展覧会を東京で見に行ったのがものすごく、後々気が付くんですけど、やっぱりショックで、自分の子供を食べる絵を見た時に、あとは裸のマハと着衣のマハを見た時に、芸術っていうのはエロティックで、あとそういう子供を食っちゃったりして、もう何ともかんとももうひどいなって思ったりしたんですけど、つまりその子供に対するアプローチっていうのは子供へのメッセージっていうアートがあってもいいと思い始めた時期がありまして、そこから子供でも分かるようなカラフルな色とか、例えばドクロがあったらやっぱりそれは死だなっていうのは分かるでしょうけど、別に決して暗くなんていうんですか、陰鬱な感じじゃなくてちょっと楽しげな感じになっていたりして、でもそれを見てその将来あれは何だったんだろうかっていうふうに思ってくれることがすごく大事だなと思ったので、その意味で、今もですけども子ども向けのその作品っていうのをやっぱりコンスタントに作っており、お花とドクロっていうのはどちらかというと子ども向けに作ったメッセージの強い作品たちであります。
So from my own experience, I've had two important artistic experience. One is, of course, I went to art university. So first I learned how to realistically and realistically draw apples and do it well. And then you start to find your own style and develop as an artist. But before that, my the other art experience I had was when I was little. I went to an exhibition in Tokyo of Goya. And I was taken to a show, and I only later realized this, but I was really shocked by the work I saw, these like demons eating his own children, or the naked maha and the clothed maha. And I thought, oh, art is something erotic and gruesome, and so that was the impression. And that's something stuck with me. So then at one point I started thinking there should be art addressing children, something that is easy to understand for children. So then I experimented with colorful, and I thought if there's a skull, then you kind of easily think about death. But then, without making it dark, I would make it fun, also colorful. So in making these works, I want the children who see these works to later on wonder about what that was. I think that's what's important. So I am constantly making works that are addressing children, and so especially skulls and flowers are often messages to children.
Yeah, which way?
Hi. I've noticed you've taken a strong interest in synthesizing your works with fashion, even the beautiful thing that you have on today, the suit. And I was wondering, can you talk a little bit more about what that's done for your career, and if you are planning on doing anything else in that nature, in that realm, in the future, so similar to what you've done with Louis Vuitton and Vans. And that's the first part. Second part is I actually have a van here today, and if you could sign it for me, I don't know.
No. はい。I was shocking, like, okay, so this is a little bit long story. I was shocking the collaboration with Supreme with Louis Vuitton stuff, because this is a street, fashion versus, high fashion. So that is a kind of the, next breakthrough after, our Louis Vuitton, collaboration with artists in a project. So, and also the Gucci, so making for the really freedom feeling. I forgot the name, the new designer, that he is a really nice job. Looks like, who? Oh, yeah. Michele? Yeah. He is really nice. I'm very fit with his feeling. So, because, he picked up the images in the whole of the world, really funny translation. So that means, people believe high and low the level of the culture. So, but right now is, melting for everything. We can understanding for a long time this is a melting situation. But, in fact, when I see the, the Louis Vuitton show in Supreme, this is shocking. Red color and Louis Vuitton logo more than strongly to the Supreme. So that is breakthrough, how good marriage with street fashion and high fashion. So, but our world is same. So because I have experience in last year in a Complex Con. So Complex, media was invited to this convention. So this convention having, mostly the street fashion design thing, and also the music, the hip hop and kind of techno or something like that. But I am not, I was wondering, so why? So they invite me because I'm artist, I'm not a fashion people, kind of really alternative artist. But in fact, I came to this convention, so many kids buying my material and exactly buying for the sneakers and the jeans and kind of street fashion. Looks like kind of the fashion industry is shrinking. This is everybody said, but in fact in a Complex Con is spend a lot of money as a kids. So completely new world and completely my new audience. So and then people audience, the kids find out me. Oh, hey, Takashi! So why I couldn't understand why. So, but exactly this is my new audience because this is not, gallery, this is not museum. So, but they bringing for they bought my materials, and then looks like really different feeling. So that means that I think art, fashion, street and high fashion is everything is mixing, much more concrete. So that is now the situation, and also the like kind of the like internet communication generation people. That means the can say super flat level, the hierarchy. So who is stronger is many follower has. No rich people, no kind of famous people, because my follower is it's good number, but cannot compare with hip hop artist. Right? This is can say same level, right? So I have how many people? Like 300,000 people, something like that. But like a million follower, the people is great. So kind of that situation. High art is what? Like like street art is what? So that is big questions. So and then I want to go into the new world. Exactly, this is museum show is new world, but because like never come to the museum. So like kind of like museum is castle, museum is church, but now is an entertainment place also. So that means that everything is melting. So I want to, go in. I don't know what is the future, but I want to involvement. I want to go into the, new world. So that is make sense. Something like that. Thank you.
Mr. Murakami. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You and Jeff Koons have something in common, I think. I think you recognize that there is an avid immersion in the commercialization, in what we call immersion in consumerism in the world today. And I think both of you have sort of addressed this concern that many artists have seen in the world. But I think Mr. Jeff Koons sort of looks at it in a different way, in the sense that he seems to enjoy the baseness of commercialization, and he seems to enjoy it in a certain way. And I feel that you have addressed the concern, but I keep feeling that there is a certain kind of but that you have sort of seen it you are diametrically opposed to it in some ways, and there is a darkness in the way that you address commercialization in it. I may be wrong entirely. I think there is a joyfulness in your work, but is there a darkness in it? Do you have is there any satire in what you talk about? Is there any tongue-in-cheek, another layer to what you are talking about? Is there something else that we have missed beyond what you talk about in terms of the playfulness of it? Or is it just to be taken as something pretty and joyful and childish and playful?
あれですね、この前カンヌ映画祭でネットフリックスがスポンサーの映画がなんか賞を取ってめっちゃコントロバーシーになってて、来年からもうネットフリックスの映画は映画と認めんと、劇場でやらない映画は映画じゃないと言ってて怒ってたわけですよね。でだけどやっぱ勘のいい、例えば J.J. エイブラハムスとかやっぱり勘のいいムービーのインダストリーにいる人たちはみんなネットフリックスとかフルールとかそういうお金を使って、すごくチャレンジャブルな映画を作り始めてるわけです。その時に言えるのは、映画って何なの？じゃあ分かりますよ。カンヌ映画祭はやっぱり劇場でかけるっていう意味である種のビジネスの保護主義でもあるわけで、そういう意味ではネットフリックスみたいな劇場を通さない映画は映画じゃないっていうのは分かります。それと同じようにアートっていうのも今でこそね、世界中にこうやって美術館がありますけど、それこそ僕すごく象徴的な話としての MCA シカゴのね、ダン・フレビンのなんか 一番最初のストーリーがあると思うんですけど、昔はそんなミュージアムがなかったわけですよね。今はあるからこういうカンファレンスとかあったりして、なんか非常になんかこう真面目にやんなきゃいけないっていうような雰囲気ですけど、でもアートって何かっていうと、やっぱりどんどん移りゆく様、その生きてる今をどうやってこうブリージングしてそれを吐き出す、アーティストを吐き出すのかっていう見る現場であって、やっぱりそのビジネスのお金がすごいでかいから悪だとかそういうふうに言われちゃうと、いやそう言われてもそういうのをやっぱり僕らはもっと大きいものを作りたいとか、もっと変なものを作りたいとかいう時にお金かかって、それにやっぱり面白がってインベストしてくれる人たちがいてくれて実現してるんですけど、そういう時にですね、やっぱりそのジャンルにおいてのアートって何かっていうのを、そのさっき言ったようにカンヌでのネットフリックスはもうアゲンストして映画じゃないっていうのと同じようなことを言われても、いい映画監督とやっぱそれはやっぱりまずいっていう映画監督2種類いると思うんですけど、僕は言われてもいいと、やっぱりそのテレビであろうが何であろうがやっぱりインベストしてくれる人と一緒に新しいチャレンジをしたいっていう方のクリエイターなんで、その意味でジェフ・クーンズさんも最もそれに近いと思うんですよね。で彼はやっぱり見てるとやっぱりすごいいっぱいチャリティーとかやっていて、彼はやっぱりそのアートを伝道したいと、そういう自分のようなもうめちゃくちゃなことをやるアートっていうのをもっと広く伝道しなきゃいけないっていうような気持ちを強く持っていて、その意味ですごく真面目ですごくこう真摯な作家さんだと思うんですけど、だから表面的なその数字とか表面的なそのなんていうマーケットの状況とかを言われちゃうと、何ともかんとも僕らは言えないんですけど、でも信じてほしいのはやっぱり生き残ってるクリエイターは生き残ってるような理由があるんで、その理由っていうのはやっぱりそのインベストしてくれる人もやっぱこうやってみんなで来てくれるオーディエンスも信じてくれるだけの根拠を持った作品を作ってるわけで、そこを信じてもらって、後のそのバックヤードの話っていうのは面白がって本当にバスケットボールプレーヤーのバックヤードの契約ぐらいに思ってくれればいいんじゃないかなと思うんですけど、なんかちょっとうわってくる気持ちもわからんではありません。すいません、I'm sorry that really wrong. But this is a big good point of view. That's why. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Yuko.
Let me see if I can do this. So recently at the Cannes Film Festival, a film that was sponsored by Netflix won an award, and there was a huge controversy. People were outraged, and then some people were saying from next year on, films that haven't had a run in the theater cannot be eligible. So there's been outrage, but people who have certain type of sense, who like J.J. Abrams and other directors are making their films using the money from Netflix and Hulu and those type of services. So then you start thinking about what is film, how do you define it? And of course, an institution like a festival like Cannes are in a way protective of the conventional structure of film being shown in the theater. So that's one thing. And then when you think about art in the same way, now there are museums that you can go to, and then this kind of talk shows and conferences where you can sit down and talk seriously about artwork. But I think it's a very interesting example of Dan Flavin show in the very early time of Museum of Contemporary Art here, where they showed Dan Flavin and no one understood it and no one appreciated. So there wasn't this kind of institution available before. And when you think about what art is, it's something ever-changing, and it's very living and breathing. And then it's to see an art. To see an art means you are seeing how an artist breathes those things in and then back out to you. So and then you start talking about the business and the money and commercialization and stuff like that. Whether it's bad. When you get into that kind of discussion, but an artist wants to make something big and different and interesting, and then you need money. So, and then there are people who would think similarly and actually invest in you. So, at a Cannes Film Festival, when they say, "Oh, this is not a film," some director would say, "Oh no, that's a bad thing," and then some people think, "Oh, that's fine." So I'm the kind that feels that's fine, and I want to take on many new challenges together with the investors who believe in me. and I think Jeff Koons is the same way. He's doing a lot of charity works and things like that. But I think he really wants to spread the kind of art that he does, something really out there and doesn't follow rules. And so he really earnestly wants to spread that kind of art. And so I think he's very earnest and serious artist. And then when you ask questions about whether market is good or bad, that kind of question it's hard to answer. But if you think about the reason why some of the artists like myself are surviving in our careers and market, I think that we are making works that would make you know, the audience who are here believe in them, or people who would invest in my work believe in them. So you know, the backyard type of deals, you know, you could maybe enjoy it like a gossip of sports, you know, athletes being traded and stuff like that. But it's a little bit, you know, something necessary and a little bit different.
I think we have time for one more question. This gentleman here has been very, very patient. If we could get him a microphone.
I want to say thank you again for coming. I've been a fan of your work for a while. In times when I was in school and I saw Mr. D.O.B. In art history books, just being really curious about the work. So thank you. The new piece is really sticking with me. I haven't seen you do anything like this and embrace street culture or street art like in this way, and I'm really fascinated about the process. Was it a collaboration between you and other artists? And I think it's just the figure to me is just really interesting. So I just want you to talk about that a little bit more and kind of go in on that.
Yes, honestly, I'm missing a way in the future. Like my company is, you know, kind of everyday mess. Like, you know, money condition is bad. I have to ask him for bank. Can I get a few money? No. Like, looks like, you know, kind of stupid type of B movie stuff. This is my life. Yeah, like you laughing, but you know, this is true stuff because, and also like, you know, the bango is same thing, right? Like a monk is same thing, right? Kind of the you know, life, the artist's life is stupid. So, and also, you know, I cannot, you know, watching my future. So, but, you know, I told you about, you know, complex con, the shock was huge. This is, you know, okay, so I can striding for this world. So why? I don't know. But, you know, this is a sixth sense. And then, you know, I'd been long time to, you know, love to watching to the street, you know, art. Not kind of establishment stuff. Looks like kind of the tag. Looks like, you know, really, you know, kind of, I don't know. I bought, you know, a lot of magazine and I checking for a lot of, you know, artist information. And I meet with, you know, Japanese American, you know, artist. Like, no, he's Japanese, but kind of lives in U.S. a long time. So that guy is a very, you know, very close to my feeling. Like, you know, complex. Like, you know, having a big stress in Japan, big stress in U.S. because he cannot fit with both culture. So, and then he making for the tagging. So, and when I see that his show in small gallery, I was really, you know, get a nice feeling because, oh my God, he has a kind of mental ill, like very negative something, but his face is smiling. This is same way to the I using for the smiling faces. My smiling face is not smiling. So, but you know, I'm sorry, audience, everybody said, "Thank you, Takashi. Give me the many happiness." But this is, yeah, I'm smiling is thank you, but this is not. The smiling is like kind of, I don't know, like just I don't know in English can say have to smiling like this is a worst case, right? So I cannot see watching to the future. That's why I want to collaborate these guys, and also this piece is super successful for me, but for the art critic or like kind of the art collector for like curator, I don't know how the effect. This is that the Takashi's piece? Is that the just collaboration? Is that the just rent from the street art? I don't know, but this is like I'm breathing right now. So I made this piece. So that's why I have to make this piece. This is really my honest mood right now. So, but I don't know. So what is that? But this is a really great thing. So this show was many turning point piece was not first time to came from me is not conceptual, like cannot understand it. Looks like kind of freaking out, and then I design for the pencil and paint and kind of like mix mess. So I'm still going to the kind of chaotic situation. That is this piece. It makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Takashi, again. Thank you, Yuko, for your wonderful translation.